Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Detroit Chamber's first ever Lessons in Leadership. I'm Tammy Carnreich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the Chamber. Lessons in Leadership is a virtual series that we will now be offering that is for emerging leaders from business, government, and civic organizations. The opportunity to hear from experienced leaders about their leadership journey, and we will have quite a lineup for you to see in the coming months. I have to say thank you to our sponsor, Bank of America, of course, who you're going to hear from in just a moment, for their support of this series. And I will encourage you to visit detroitchamber.com/lessons in leadership. You'll be able to see our upcoming speakers, as well as this is being recorded today, so you will be able to see that too. One other housekeeping note, you will be able to submit questions in the chat box if you'd like. And that will take place after Doug has finished his keynote speak. So we look forward to that. So today, I have the privilege of speaking with Doug Song. Listing all of Doug's accomplishments and titles could take an entire webinar. So I'm just going to give you some high points for now. But there are a few highlights that are really worthy of discussing. Doug is the co-founder of Duo Security, which Cisco Systems acquired. And Doug is now their Chief Strategy Officer of Cisco Secure. Duo is headquartered in Ann Arbor, has offices in London, Austin, San Mateo, California. And in addition to doing all that work, Doug is incredibly active in the startup and venture capital world, especially in the Ann Arbor area. He is the founder of Tech Brewery, which is an interesting name. Tech Brewery is a startup co-op community in Ann Arbor and an advisory board member for Venture of America, which we know is a very worthy organization. Furthermore, we're so grateful that Doug is a member of the board of directors of the Detroit Regional Chamber and a member of our Racial Justice and Economic Equity Steering Committee. I get the pleasure of working with Doug a lot. He's a tremendous leader, and I know you're going to really enjoy hearing from him. So Doug, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Tammy, and thank you, Matthew, for sponsoring, and thank you all of you for being here. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the story of Duo and some of the leadership lessons we've had along the way. For those who don't know Duo, we were the first unicorn, built over $1 billion valuation software company in Michigan. We were also the largest software acquisition in Michigan. So back in 2018, Cisco Systems had acquired us for nearly $2.5 billion. But really what a lot of folks knew us as from outside of Michigan is those weirdos in Michigan. This funny company that sought to go compete in a multi-billion-dollar market against over 100 competitors in our space at the time, and actually ended up dominating that market. So this story is a little bit of what it took to do that. And if there's anything I'd say I'm most proud of is the fact that not those numbers or so forth, but the fact that, in our industry, we're known as the most loved company in security, most loved by our customers, by our employees, by our partners. And if there's one number I really care about, it's the NPS score, the Net Promoter Score that we have amongst customers and employees, which is actually over 70. At a time where Apple is 66, Rackspace with a Fanatical Sport is 55. We can generate a lot of loyalty and trust in our business, which is highest compliment that we could really have. And so that story of hypergrowth, what does it look like building a company that is basically tripling revenue every year and doubling the team every year, where every 6 months you look around and half the team is new. Executing and scaling at that kind of high velocity from 2 people to 800 in under a decade is it's a bit of a trick and a bit of a black art. But I'll explain to you that it's the same kind of thing that you do in building any kind of business, right? It takes kind of 3 things, in my opinion. You have to have a winning strategy, the right story and strategy. You have to have the right team. You have to have superior execution. Because even a tech company really fundamentally is just about people, right? In fact, it's all we have. We don't have any land. We don't have any factories. There's no machinery. We just have people with laptops and internet connections, right? So that's really what we are. And fundamentally, what defines us is that we're a learning organization because we're not smarter. We're not better resourced. We don't work harder or longer than any of our competitors. The real difference between our organization and all the others by going after these same opportunities is that we learn together faster, maybe more effectively, these new routes to success than our competitors. And so to kind of break that down a little bit, we start with a winning strategy. What does that really mean? I think having a winning strategy is understanding who you serve, why, and how, and having clarity of purpose around what is it you're doing. Because if you're building a team, that team needs to know what that journey is and where we're going on this trip and how they can help. And in our case, the problem we set out to solve in internet security was the fact that the internet became literally everyone's problem, right? The internet connected everybody, including the bad people. And so our mission became to democratize security, to make security something that every organization could achieve by making security easy and effective for all. And security is, again, a very complex topic, and but the solutions don't have to be complicated. And that was really the insight that we had, that we needed to make security something that everyone could achieve. And we came together as an organization with a purpose, right, to protect others from harm. And with that kind of mission and that kind of goal, we built all the scaffolding for how we aligned a team against, not just that, long-term mission and vision of the company, but our annual plans, our quarterly goals, to processes like OKRs, objectives and key results, through board reports that we shared not only with the board, but with the entire company. And I'm happy to chat about those kind of tech tools and techniques later, but we employed lots of pretty modern management practice, I think, in how we operate to build a highly transparent, highly aligned organization. Because the most important thing is if we brought together 800 horses, that they pull the cart in the same direction, right? Not every other direction. And so building a team, having the right team is also really important. And what does that look like organizationally? Well, being in Michigan and being outside of the kind of buzz of the valley and everything else, we had to do it a bit differently. And we had to ensure that we were built to be more creative, to learn how to fail, to fail and to learn faster, right? How to recover from that, be more resilient. I'm a skateboarder, which is skateboarding is 80% falling on your face and getting back up and figuring out how not to fall on your face that same way. And learn to support each other along the way, which is something we do quite well here in the Midwest, right? We're good neighbors. We go out of our way to help each other be successful. And so it really starts with hiring and choosing the right people. And for us, that was about building the most diverse team we could. Because in order to solve this problem that's been around for a long time, right? How do you, prevent attackers from stealing people's passwords, breaking into these organizations, so forth? We need to solve these problems from multiple perspectives, because the kind of security we had to deal with is at the intersection of technology and people. And most of the people, in fact, we hired didn't come from the industry, didn't come from security. Our business relative to the rest of the industry, which, for instance, is only about 11% women in cybersecurity, ours is 40% women and underrepresented minority. And the goal there was really to hire for cultural contribution, not cultural fit, as you might sometimes hear in technology. And so we ask these questions, what makes you unique, right? To try to understand what that contribution can be. It was really around hiring creative rebels, fast learners, team players, like we say in Arbor, freaks, geeks, and jocks. But building that diverse team is really important. And then finally, on superior execution, what does a learning organization look like operationally? Well, a lot of that is in how we get these diverse teams to actually execute faster and better, because they can be more difficult. They're harder to manage and learn across difference when everyone has different perspectives and mental models, skill sets, and frameworks. And so, but there's an art to turning conflicting ideas and approaches into creativity, not friction. And so we have 3 values for that define how we work together, which are to engineer the business, right, to drive continuous innovation across every part of our business by pushing decision-making down, encouraging risk-taking, doing what's right for our customers, company, and community at every level, and no one having to wait, right, to get permission, right? Like we say, it's better to have forgiveness than permission in a fast-growing company. To learn together about how to make right decisions, because how you make right decisions is often by making a bunch of wrong ones and learning from that. And so for us, it was much less about the quality of an individual decision and much more about the quality of our decision process, because we need to win or learn, right, together. And then finally, in being kind of necessary, which is to go out of our way help each other be successful, we had to remove barriers to brilliance, make sure that everyone could work to their best and highest purpose, and make their best contribution within our business, by ensuring that we took barricades out of their way. We enabled them to do this. And finally, also by removing drama from the business. As the CEO, I felt like a lot of my job was basically that, making sure we remove drama from the business, and making sure that our teammates never clip each other on the field. Because if you do that, you're guaranteed to lose the game, right? So there's a lot of care and effort we took in how we took care of the team, enabled them to take care of the business. And maybe in Q&A, we can talk more about what that looked like. But even basic practices like opening or closing every meeting with appreciations, 3 to 5 minutes of thanking each other for the things that we've done to make each other successful. It's how we model the behavior we want to see. It's how we actually, as leaders, hear what's important from our teams versus us just telling them what we think is important. But a lot of these kind of practices are things that, again, are really the guardrails for our business and how we were able to grow and scale so quickly without falling apart. But with all that said, I know we'll have time for questions here, and I'd be happy to dive into it. But the summary of kind of all this is that if you do take care of your team and the people, and you focused on, again, how people work and how they can be made effective in their journey together, accomplishing something larger than themselves, as Bill Harbaugh, or not Bill Harbaugh, Bill Walsh, the coach of the 49ers before Harbaugh was coach of the 49ers and then came to Michigan. He used to say the score takes care of itself. And I actually really believe that to be true. If you take care of the team and the people, you make sure that you have operational rigor in what you do, the score will take care of itself. And anyway, I'm here to hopefully be living proof of that, and also share any of our insights on how we did so.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much, Doug. And let me remind everyone, if you want to open up the group chat, if you'd like to submit a question, I'd be very happy to post that to Doug. But I want to expand on a few of the things you brought up that I think we'd all like to learn more about, and as it relates to your team. So when you talked about fail and learn faster, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I think what's important in a high growth business, and one that's really trying to be disruptive, right, where we are trying to, again, find new routes to success that our competitors haven't already mastered and owned themselves. I can't just take someone else's playbook and try to run those same plays and expect that I'm going to beat them, right? They built that playbook, they perfected it. They know those plays in ways that we don't. It's up to us to come up with ones that we own. And the things, and I always encourage my team to think very hard about the reasons we win more than the reasons we lose, because the reasons we win, we get to control, we get to double down on, we get to scale and repeat. There are many reasons why we might lose. For instance, the hand-to-hand comment of a sales engagement. Maybe the competitor dropped the price to nothing, right? Gave the product away or what have you. Those reasons we win are most important. And so we get there by enabling the team to try lots of things and be experimental in how we find those solutions. And so when we talk about engineering the business, what I mean to say is that we ask every person in the company, well, we don't ask, we expect every person in the company to make decisions on our behalf to drive the business forward. And those decisions, might involve, big and small things, but any decision that's irreversible comes to me. If we really can't back out of it, then I have to get involved. But for the most part, most decisions in the business, I never had almost anything to do with, right? We had lots of folks making excellent decisions on how we do marketing, on how we structure sales, on how we build product and so forth. And the language you heard in our business and still do is, I've got that. Right, in a meeting where we've got some topic before us. Okay, so what should we do about this problem? Someone will raise their hand and say, okay, I've got that, and we'll all look at that person and say, okay, so what do you need? Right, you will then own our point of view and perspective on that topic, but there are different ways in which that decision might be made by that person. Maybe it's I'll need 3 of you to come with me and we'll figure this out, or hey, I'd love to hear what the team has to say, and maybe we'll take a vote. It's never foolish consistency around how we make decisions, but every decision has an owner, and that person is enabled, right, to go and drive that business, that decision ahead of us. And the commitment we have as a team is that we might only have like 60% agreement, right? Most decisions, even the company, I probably didn't agree with, but it wasn't my job to necessarily. My job was to make sure that we support our teams to see those decisions through, and 60% agreement, 100% commitment. And so that's how we learn together. That's how we learn how to make the right decisions. We do things like blameless retrospectives, where we go back and look and say, okay, what worked, what didn't? It's about what's right, not who's right. And we practice a lot of how we do that teamwork, right? We do hack days where we celebrate creative problem solving by coming up with interesting problems to solve with teams that we don't normally work with. And these are the ways in which we experiment our way to success. But in a fast-growing business, you can't structure all your decisions from the top. It will never work that way. And I think sometimes people think that's that sort of top-down sort of stuff that's how the military works and so forth. It's not really even, right? There's commander's intent, but then obviously you have many teams enabled, right, to go and deliver, right, to the mission. That's what that looks like at scale, right? Where if you're moving really, really fast and in the fog of war, you need people to understand how they need to operate, right? You don't need people waiting around to be told what to do. And so that's the way that we set up our business, so that no one was really scared of ever taking chances or risks on behalf of the company. In fact, it was their job to do so.
You talked about hiring for cultural contribution, and as I've been working the Racial Justice and Economic Equity Initiative for the Chamber, I'm hearing this a lot as we are evaluating our own hiring, activity. Can you talk more about that? Because I think that it would be of great interest to folks.
Yeah, I think, typically, in interviews, people ask a lot about things like history and skills. But I think two other things are probably as important, for us, because, those things are important. And what we are looking there is that answer to that question, what makes you unique? Because if from your history and skills, you don't have anything necessarily that new or different to bring to us, well, we already have some of it. And I don't need 20 people sitting around the table who have the same opinion about something or approach it the same way. What I need are a bunch of different ways in which we might attack something and widen our toolbox, right? And so when we were interviewing for that, we did look beyond our industry, outside of security, specifically from consumer sort of product stuff, or in enterprise IT versus security. We find folks from all different backgrounds to bring into the business that way. But the thing that we really need to understand, to align to, was motivation and values. So history, skills, but also motivation and values. Because I think, my style of leadership comes from my experience as an open source developer. Before I did all these companies, I was something of a software communist, getting all this free software to give to the world. And you do that with a bunch of teams of volunteers, all of whom have day jobs. None of them have to do what you would tell them, hey, you need to do this. They're never going to do it. And so how do you motivate teams of volunteers to do things? Understand what it is that they want to do, and what is in their interest, what's their story arc and career journey. Because if the needs of the organization can present as opportunity to those people, well, then everyone wins and grows together, right? They grow and the business grows. And so we spend a lot of time actually in interviews understanding why someone would want to be here. What is their, we could certainly try to put them into, to the best and highest purpose in order to do the best and highest work, but we have to understand what motivates them. Because I don't think as a leader, I actually know how to motivate anybody. I can understand how to map, their interests and needs to ours. I think we need to understand their values as well, how they work in a team, how they treat each other. And so we used to do a lot of behavioral interviewing to get to that, try to understand, is this someone who actually can learn? Do they have the self-awareness to understand the impact they have on other people? Because without that, there's no opportunity for coaching, feedback, or real growth. And so you would ask, interview questions like, so what's the biggest misconception about you? And that would also throw people well, I never really thought about that. But, but people who really have high EQ have, right? They've been thoughtful about like, oh yeah, sometimes I've heard this, or I've gotten this kind of feedback, or what have you. But we were also always trying to figure out the puzzle fitting of those people into our org, not just trying to stamp them out, right? Say, I need like 10 more of Jane, like exactly what she does, exactly who she is, 10 more of her. We're always looking for like, let's build a beautiful garden of many different kinds of beautiful flowers. So
All right, well, we're now starting to get some questions in the chat box. So I'm going to go to some of the folks who are listening in. So we just talked about hiring. And so a question from one of our viewers is, not every hire is a success.
yes,
What triggers or signals are important in deciding when to let a new hire depart?
that's a good question. So again, you'll never be 100% hiring. You try, but you'll never be 100%. And what's important is that the way in which this is, again, there are many ways to be successful. I'll start with that. There are many ways to be successful, and every company will choose their own. I just encourage you to be intentional about what that path looks like. For us, it was always about people first, right? And we treat people as well on their way out as we did on their way in. And of course, within the company, along the journey together with us, we always worked very hard to understand how we were doing in terms of performance management. But the way we did that was not the typical kind of annual review and how are you doing? Let's do the 360 with all your peers, understand what they think of you, all this kind of stuff. Managers have a responsibility at Duo to deeply understand people, their direct reports on their journey. Every one of them did a one-on-one with their direct reports at least once every other week, more often weekly, covering three things, right? One, how are you doing, right, as a direct report? Number two, here's what we need from you, right? Here's and then number three, where are we in terms of your professional development, and how are we tracking to your career goals and ambitions? And so, at least for my direct reports, whenever I hired new executives and leaders, I was always looking for answers to the question, what are you looking to accomplish in your personal and professional career, professional life, I should say, in the next 2 to 4 years, right? And the answers vary. It could be, well, I want to have a family, I want to buy this house, I want to, become a VP, or, become a CEO one day. But whatever those things might be, we would always work to track along that, both on the short and longer term horizons, and the alignment of our execution to the company's goals that we defined every year as part of our annual planning process in OKRs, objectives and key results, where the objectives are sort of the stated goal, but the key results are the measurable, kind of outcomes that we can track to. We broke down into quarterly basis, and of course broke down for some of our leaders into MBOs. But again, having explicit and very transparent program of management around that, so that no one is confused, like whether someone is accomplishing this or not. But to really manage well, I think there has to be that commitment that it's a partnership. It's a partnership to the manager and the direct. And for delegation and accountability to really work, you have to agree on three things. Number one, agree on what's to be done, because you can't come back later and say, no, bring me a different rock, right? Like, you have to agree on what's to be done, agree on how that person's going to be supported, right? That you can't say, well, but I thought this person I thought marketing was going to help me on that, but they didn't. Like, you have to agree on that support. And then third, agree on what success looks like, right? On what the actual metrics and measures are. Because, well, I didn't know you meant that. I did this, and here's these numbers, but actually, no, this is actually what mattered. And so measuring what matters, getting clear about that program of management, and again, establishing the trust with the directs, so that because that's, for me, that's the most important thing, right? It's just like for a good manager is like a good teacher, right? They hold you to high standards and they care about you, right? Those are the two things I think for most of us define what our favorite teachers represented. And in management, I think it's very similar. But you have to have both of those things, and you have to have a program of management that is actually very transparent and explicit to do that well.
In order to be successful. So from another one of our viewers, thank you for your incredible insights, Doug. Can you speak more about how you removed barriers to brilliance, to empower and unlock the potential of your people? Also, as the founder of the company, Can you describe the process of getting comfortable with releasing authority over key decisions to promote rapid growth?
Sure. So the latter one's maybe more straightforward. That is just making sure that you actually have ways in which the information gets back to you about what's happening. Because that's always the challenge, especially in an organization at scale. You lose kind of touch with what's happening because the reality exists on the front lines of your business, right? Not at the top. And you can be isolated as a leader in a way that where you really become divorced from reality. It's very important you create those pathways back to you, which is why things like appreciations really matter, where you have peers actually calling out what things each other are doing that make the team successful. Number one, it's motivating. People love, that positive feedback, right? You want to, it's like 5 times as much positive feedback to negative feedback that people really, really crave. But it's also a way to understand, like, oh, wow, Patrick did figure something out. He figured out how to do this thing, and maybe we should elevate and standardize that practice. So those kind of pathways are really important. But again, the kind of operational reporting we do through things like board reports, where every one of my leaders wrote 3 to 5 paragraphs every 6 weeks of the plans, progress, and problems in their business. Just a quick summary, 3 to 5 paragraphs, right? Something like an email kind of size thing. I would put together, send out to the board for our board reports and our board meetings, but also I sent it to the entire company afterwards so that everyone knew kind of what's happening in the business. Those are ways in which I think it's you gain real confidence around kind of how things work and what's going on. But you have to trust your people. I mean, if you're hiring people, you're giving them control, right, of a portion of the business, and it's up to you as a leader to understand how you negotiate and manage, that relationship well. But in terms of reducing barriers to brilliance, there's all kinds of practices we had. We have, and again, they look somewhat different, but actually very similar at Cisco. But under Duo, we had, for instance, no non-competes. Right. One of the things that people kind of get stuck in a bit is, they get stuck in jobs that they feel that they can't leave because if they do, they won't be able to go to a competitor or whatever. We ended up with saying no non-competes. We have no control and shouldn't of what you do after this company. But non-competes are standard, right, in all 50 states outside of California. So that was a little bit different. We gave 16 weeks of parental leave, right? We think people need to come back whole brained. And, those of you who are parents, I have 2 kids myself, know that it can take quite some time to recover from that. But also other things, paid medical, FMLA, paid bereavement, paid jury duty, paid military leave, right? People have things in their lives that they have to do, and they need to do for themselves and their families, and we have to be able to support that. A fully paid healthcare option, basic 9 to 5 working hours, minimum 3-week kind of PTO, like vacation. We make people take vacation. In fact, I tied it to some executives' compensation that you have to take vacation. We have deaf employees for whom we have interpreters. We have prayer and reflection rooms. We have gender-neutral bathrooms. We have onboarding days where I still onboard every employee, or used to. We have name tag days where everyone wear name tags so no one has felt awkward about forgetting someone else's name. I mean, all these basic things. It sounds really kind of simple, but believe me, these are the kind of things that make it easier for a person to belong and to contribute in ways that are meaningful and not feel like, I don't know how to get things done here. I don't know if I can talk to that person, whatever. I mean, for us, it was always about the people in the work, never about the roles and the titles. And that's how we got so much done at all levels versus, again, the sort of inefficiencies of having things go up and down the chain between groups and all that. So.
Another question from our participants along the line of hiring. In your diverse hiring, you've also offered internships and entry-level opportunities. What do you look for in that young talent?
Yeah, so entry-level talent really varied for us. But what we're looking for were people who could learn, who demonstrated, that in some way, in their early career, that they've had the motivation to mastery. One of the best sales interns who became like an amazing sales leader at Duo had his name on the top of every leaderboard in all the bars in downtown. And it's not, we're not looking to hire, people who are really great at drinking. That's definitely not the goal. But when they came in, we had this litmus test almost, like, can we describe this person as an animal, right? Like this person's that person's like a marketing animal. Oh, she's an HR animal, right? Like they're motivated, they're going to run for it, they're going to grow. They're ferocious in kind of what they do. Um, and the kind of questions that we saw, folks like this person became a sales manager. I remember hearing kind of his interview questions when he was talking to people on the phone. He'd be like, "So tell me about a skill you mastered," and it could be anything. It might have been like, "Hey, I wanted to lose weight, and so I went on this weight loss program," or "I wanted to learn an instrument, and so I spent the summer learning guitar, and then I performed." Like, but these kinds of things. I mean, it sounds so simple, but for us, the ability to learn and learn quickly was a huge aspect of that, as well as again that sort of self-motivation, right? Where people, because we need that, we need people who are going to look around and say like, that is a problem, and I'm going to go take that. I've got that, right? And so we were constantly looking for that, even at the most basic levels of the most earliest levels of our career, you know, um, experience in Duo. And yeah, I encourage you, if you do have an internship program, make sure those interns get to do real things. Like our interns, like on the programming side, they were committing code their first day. On the sales side, they're taking calls their first day. I mean, we always put them into practical work immediately, and we gave them ownership just like every employee we have. And so that's how it's why we have so many of those interns that have gone on to careers within Duo. And it's also why our internship program is so highly ranked. I think we only take about 20 interns, for instance, in a group like engineering a year. We have 2,000 applicants every year. And so yeah, it's important to create that pipeline.
Okay, so I want to switch a little bit from hiring, and I want to talk about you. You are not initially a Michigander, but you have been a fantastic advocate and promoter for our state. Obviously, the Detroit Regional Chamber greatly appreciates that. And you've been a great promoter of technology for Detroit in a technology hub. Why are you so passionate about promoting Michigan and its burgeoning technology industry?
I'd say because Michigan's always had this. I think there's a secret history of Michigan that most people don't realize or recognize, of entrepreneurship and of technology development. Goes back way to the 1800s and the days of the furs and the traders and trappers. I mean, the even the ice industry, right? Like there was a time where we carved blocks of ice out of the Great Lakes and put them in sawdust covered trains that shipped to New York before refrigeration. But so much of the secret history of Michigan's growth has been through production, and which in itself is a technology, a technical, technology-driven enterprise. From furniture to like pizza delivery. Pizza delivery, like Domino's, is an IT company that has pizza, sure, right, to distribute, but it's logistics. It's like a bunch of cars and stores at the edges of that network, right, that they've built. Shipping, right, logistics, cars, obviously, furniture. Like we have so much here and a long history of that, not just in terms of that production, but also distribution. And if you've been a CEO or want to be, you'll learn that you go quickly from realizing that, oh, I want to build this great product.
Oh, I think you froze up, Doug. Hold on, everyone. A little technical difficulty. Doug, you're frozen. There you go. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Here in Michigan, we've always thought, I think, about our businesses as being global businesses, right? We export what we do, right? Even in Arbor, where the industry is brains, right? We develop brains and we ship them out. It's still a global industry, and so I'm very long on Michigan because I think not only I think it's the best place in America to raise family. It's sort of always. And a lot of it has to do with the culture, right? The Midwesterners are good neighbors. Here in Michigan, we do look at each other. We are blessed with all kinds of natural resources, more natural coastline than Florida, and as many boat licenses. There's a lot to love about this place. But more than that, it is what you can do with all those resources in building really transformative businesses that have a global market. And here in Ann Arbor, particularly, I'll say, every place is about something. New York's about money, and LA is about fame, and DC is about power. Detroit's about grit, right? Resilience. Ann Arbor is a culture of learning, teamwork, and I would say revolution, right? That's kind of the history of it, going back to the 60s and counterculture, the student anti-war movement, punk rock, Iggy Pop, Stooges, MC5, of course, you know, teamwork, right? With the winningest college football program in history, go blue. Those are all these ingredients, right? The freaks, geeks, and jocks that come together to create something really disruptive. That's what I think is unique about Ann Arbor, particularly as a place. And again, combined with Detroit, right, and the history, the deep history of success, entrepreneurial success, and business there. I think we have something really unstoppable happening here in Southeast Michigan, right? And that sort of corridor of innovation, all the way from Detroit, all the way through Ann Arbor, all the way through to Lansing, kind of Michigan State, U of M, Wayne State, and all the way up to Michigan Tech. We have this kind of corridor of innovation, I think, that is really fertile ground for business success. So yeah, I'm very long on all this, and I always tell people, if you're going to start a company, you should do it here, because I can imagine no place better to do it.
That's great. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a social issue, because you have been very involved with our racial justice and economic equity work. And we've got an important society problem to tackle. There's been a troubling rise over the past year in violence and racism and violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. What role do leaders as well as businesses play in combating racism and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I believe that it's a deep responsibility for us as leaders in our organizations to speak out and to represent those we serve, which are not just our customers, but our teams and employees too. We've never shied away, at least at Duo and also Cisco, of taking a stand to protect those, right? Not only that we love, and that we, but those that, that are the family we choose, right? That are part of this broad.
Oh, you frozen again, Doug. You're frozen, Doug. You might want to try again.
There's so many.
There you go.
And even recently, we have to turn those kind of things into opportunities for meaningful action. And again, the way that we push decision making down in an organization was to empower everyone with the same rubric. We do what's right for our customers. We do what's right for our company. We do what's right for our community. And that last one is so important because we stand on the shoulders and of all that's come before us. These companies don't exist in a vacuum, right? We have to support the communities that support us. And so we have worked to take meaningful action in all these communities that we work and live and operate in. And I think it's part of our responsibility as leaders, because business is such a powerful and positive force for good. I know that particularly in tech, there's a bit of backlash to big tech and all this kind of thing. And it's well deserved for in some cases, but in many others, I think we often forget that, we're in the business of creating wealth, not just for ourselves, but for our communities. And community wealth looks like a lot more than just ourselves. It looks like economic sustainability, or, economic justice. It looks like environmental sustainability. It looks like culture, right? Cultural production and the arts and the things that we love, and the reasons for living. These are all part of, again, of the broader opportunity that we have as leaders in what we do in building businesses to leave a legacy greater than ourselves and a success bigger than ourselves. And so I implore any one of you who is in a position to lead and so forth, that we have this opportunity, but really responsibility to do so in ways that, again, benefit much more than just your direct business and organization.
Oh, very well said, Doug. Well, it looks like I've got time for maybe one more question. So since we are talking about leadership, what leader inspires Doug Song?
Too many to mention. Uh, and I won't name another maybe a tech leader, business, because there's just so many. Um, but I do reference a book. I don't love very many business books, but those of you who grew up in sort of like the 80s and 90s, like I did, as rap fans, might appreciate this. So there's a book called the Wu Tang Manual, right, by the RZA, who is the abbot of the Wu Tang Clan, a rap dynasty out of Staten Island, and it was magical and special because there were many, many different kinds of rap groups, rap duos, or rap trios, Run DMC, Eric B. and Rakim, EPMD, but Wu Tang Clan was the first rap dynasty, right? That just created a generational almost success, right? And it's because of the way they operated, drawing inspiration from everywhere, synthesizing all that, drawing inspiration from everyone. And what they nailed, I think, in so many ways, if you read that book, is not just the math of the business, right? Because we spend a lot of time thinking about that, like how should things work, but the soul of a business, right? And I think if you go into business, if you're starting something, you're trying to accomplish something, bring people on a mission, there has to be something more, right? It's more than making money. It's more than just sales. It's more than just, commercial success. There's a journey that you're taking people on and creating wonderful memories together and creating a legacy. And so, anyway, so I was always inspired that, Wu Tang Clan, the RZA was not a one-hit wonder. That they're doing. They really thought about how they came together to build something much bigger than themselves.
Well, Doug, I want to thank you so much for today, sharing your story and your perspective on leadership. I think we could have gone in so many directions. We could have kept talking for another 45 minutes, but I also want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got a big day today in your day job, so I don't want to hold you up from that. I also want to thank, again, Bank of America for sponsoring today's event and our entire Lessons in Leadership series. I want you to please mark your calendars and join me again in a couple of weeks for our next Lessons in Leadership. It's going to be April 22nd, again at 11 a.m. And I'll be speaking with Major General Ross Kaufman, and he is part of the Futures Command of the U.S. Army. He's the director of the Next Generation Combat Vehicles cross-functional team. So you'll hear a lot, not only from a military perspective. He is a great leader. I work with him. He's very innovative and leading the way with the U.S. Army as it relates to autonomous tanks, robotic tanks. So I think you'll find that very interesting. So with that, I'm going to say, Doug, thank you so much. You're one of the greatest leaders I've had the opportunity to work with. I hope you have a great day. And to everyone else, thank you to all of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you all so much. Have a great week.